this war than you can imagine. None shall be untouched by the fires above. Faith lies in ashes.
What's the most important thing you think people should know about the new Dragon Age game?
So the most important thing for me about the next Dragon Age game, Dragon Age Inquisition, is probably the amount of freedom that you have in the game. So that's freedom to create the character that you want to create, explore the world in the way that you want to explore the world. So we really want to empower the player and give them a sense that this is their game. So this is like how you look, how you play, the decisions that you make, your play style. If you want to be more action oriented, you can. If you want to be more tactical with the tactical mode, you can do that as well. And there's a whole series of things like that that we're looking at. So it's really about giving players control over the game, which they haven't had in the past.
So how much control do we get? Like, how will our actions and decisions transform or affect the world around us and the people around us?
So the way that your decisions will impact the people in the world around you, there's a variety of ways to do it, certainly through the story. So it's a BioWare story, which means that you can make some really complex decisions that impact the world and the people. So you can do that. You can change the physical landscape of the world. So you saw in the demo, we capped sulfur pits, so we sent our agents off to do that. You go back to this area that was covered in this green gas, and now there's like this big sulfur mine that's been set up. There's lots of your Inquisition soldiers out there. So that's just one example. You can open up old Tevinter mage gates, sort of like tear them down. That gives you access to more content, so you can go into the Valley of the Slaves behind it. So you can do that. You can capture keeps, fight through these sort of enemy soldiers, claim it for the Inquisition. You can change how that keep looks. You can make it sort of focus it on spies and espionage or military might, or sort of more political and commerce orientated. So that changes how the keeps look. It changes some of the in-game benefits that you get as well. And all of your soldiers and your Inquisition forces and agents move into that keep as well, along with you. So there's a lot of different ways that you can change the physical and the story impacts throughout the game.
Will people from the area you're in currently and other new areas know about the stuff you're doing and react to it?
Yeah, they certainly will react. So Dragon Age Inquisition, the decisions that you make, not just along the main story, but also along all the side quests and side content in that sort of more open world feel that we're providing the game, people will recognise that and react to it in all the different areas that you can explore throughout the game. So it's a very complex and sort of rippling impact that you have through the game.
How about the stuff we did in previous games? Will we be able to import save games, and how will this affect the gameplay?
Okay, so yes, you can bring in your save game data. We do that through the Dragon Age Keep website, which we've just announced. So what you'll do in that is you'll pick answers. You'll have a whole bunch of questions, like hundreds of different questions, and you'll be able to pick the answers to that. So that's questions from Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, all the different DLC that we've released, even some of the Flash games that we've done in the past. All of these decisions that you've made in previous games, you can set them all up, and then you can bring that down into your console or onto your PC, and that sets the world stage for Dragon Age Inquisition. So it's optional though, so you don't have to do it. So you could go and do it if you've played the previous games. If I didn't do it, then our worlds would be vastly different from the very beginning, and that has dramatic impacts throughout the whole course of Dragon Age Inquisition.
That sounds really cool. I'm looking forward to playing it now. And it also looks like really, really good.
Does it? Oh,
yeah.
That's good. I'm glad to see it.
So we know Varric will be coming back as a companion.
With all of his chest hair.
Yeah, lovely chest hair.
Yes.
And we know that Morrigan might make a reappearance.
Yes.
I've read somewhere that BioWare has said that she's going to have a more human role in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate on that?
A little bit. I can't spoil anything, of course. Morrigan will definitely be back. She plays a very large role in the game. I think we want to explore more of the human side of Morrigan. In Dragon Age Origins, she was very young at the time, and she was very sarcastic, kind of a character. But she's matured. It's a number of years since Dragon Age Origins. So depending on some of the things that you may or may not have done with Morrigan in Dragon Age Origins, she'll be in a different state in Dragon Age Inquisition. And it's some of those states that really could give a very human feel to Morrigan in the new game. That's really as far as I can go into it. We want to leave this particular part as a pretty big surprise for the players because it's pretty cool.
Does this mean we get to know what happens or happened to Morrigan's kid?
So if players, that's a good question. If players did decide to have a kid with Morrigan, and not all of them did, and so that's the thing. So I can't really talk too much about it, unfortunately. But certainly if you were to have a kid, that would make you a little bit more human, I would imagine. So you might see something about that.
How does Inquisition tie into the other games, like storyline-wise and timeline-wise?
Okay, so it's set a number of years after the events of Dragon Age 2, which was also a bit ahead of Dragon Age Origins. So the timeline has moved forward. Ferelden is still recovering from the blight from Dragon Age Origins. It will impact, as I mentioned earlier, your choices between the different games will come across. So there's a lot of connection and flow on between the previous games. The novels that we've also released, so the novels, comics, other sort of games around it, they all play a part. So you're seeing a progression of the world through these stories and with the characters and the different nations. So yes, it all tells a story, a series of events, so they're all connected in that sense.
So we should read the novels and comic books?
Yes, there is a new one coming out. I can't remember when it's coming out, but yes, there is a new one coming out that's focused more around the nation of Orlais.
So Inquisition, we're the Inquisitor.
Yes.
Does this make us essentially the villains of the game?
No. It definitely doesn't. The word Inquisition does carry a lot of weight in our world. In Dragon Age Inquisition's world, it's the Spanish Inquisition didn't exist, of course. So, but we chose the word Inquisition because it's really fundamental to what the player is going to be doing. So, the world is in chaos in Dragon Age Inquisition, and the player needs to discover and uncover the truth, which is where we get the word Inquisition. So in that sense, it's an inquisition. There is law around this organisation that you create, the Inquisition, which you'll find out during the course of the game. But it's not like the Spanish Inquisition. So you're not the villain. You can play a nasty character if you want to, or you can play a more sort of humane kind of a character. It depends on what you want to do.
Cool. In previous games, the previous games have been filled with themes like xenophobia, religious persecution, and conflicts of interest. Could you, quickly tell us something about the underlying themes in Inquisition?
You'll still see those sorts of themes. So they're quite sort of mature themes of persecution of, say, the elves, the Mage and Templar War that's been going on. So sort of persecuting or restricting mages and controlling them. So all of those themes are still there. There's other themes of war and conflict and betrayal and corruption as well that come through in the story. So you're still going to get all of those sort of very sort of broad sweeping themes.
What parts and how much of Thetis will we get to this time?
So you'll explore a lot more of the world in Dragon Age Inquisition. The scope of the story is so much larger than in previous games. So that means we need to be able, or we want the player to be able to go to a lot more diverse regions in the world to be able to tell this story. Each of the areas that you go to are very unique in their themes, and they're very, very large, each of these areas. So you get a real sense, for example, when you go to the desert, that you saw in the desert, that you're in a desert. You know, it's not this small little subsection of one big open world. So each of the areas are absolutely huge, which is why we brought back mounts, because you want to be able to ride around and find all this stuff and traverse the world quite quickly. So yeah, there's a lot of diverse areas to go to. There's a lot of ground to cover, and the story is huge, so it sort of takes you around all these different areas. And you'll spend a lot of time going back and forth between different areas depending on what you want to do in your game. So you can go into a particular area, fulfill like a number of quests or activities or whatever you want to do. Then later in the game you might want to come back, you know, fight some more creatures there or pick up some more crafting material that's only available in that region. So there's all these types of things that you can do.
Are there several mounts available? Will we be able to tame a dragon?
More on that later. So we'll talk about that at a later point.
Yeah. In what ways does the game benefit from the new Frostbite engine?
So visually, the Frostbite engine is definitely fantastic. So that allows us to bring up the fidelity of the characters. But more than that, it's about the quality of the world is so high that you really get immersed into the space. You can put more creatures on screen, the world feels more populated, it feels lush, you know, when you're going through these different areas, the water's fantastic. And then there's destruction as well, which you can use in things like battles. So, you know, if you want to kind of, like you saw in the demo, you can destroy like a bridge kind of thing, you know, with archers on it, so we can do that kind of cool stuff. And there'll be a lot of that throughout the game. So it lets you as the player have more control over this battle and what you want to do, and that combined with the tactical mode that we're bringing back, hopefully players will really enjoy those options.
Cool, thanks.
No worries, pleasure.
Darkness closes in. Will you stand against it? Or lead this world to its bitter end?